Bickley and Marotta mornings. Arizona sports. The local sports leader. Bickley Blast.
If you were watching the end of the WM Phoenix Open, you might have seen Devin Booker, Coach Bud, and other members of the Suns hanging out at the 16th hole. Normally, that might reveal a team that truly loves each other's company, like the team that once staged lemonade stands and danced together on a basketball court. Unfortunately, this is not that team, because over the last 3 days, the Suns have staged another awkward spin control press conference. They rallied to beat a terrible Jazz team, and then they fell right back to 500. More importantly, Kevin Durant has yet to make himself available, so who knows where this season is going and how low they might go. But I do know this, from watching the Eagles masterclass in roster building that was on display at the Super Bowl, to the dramatic resetting of our highly decorated golf tournament, a team that wants to win championships needs real leaders on the floor and in the front office. And if the Suns truly want to get back into that game, they need to trade Kevin Durant in the offseason, but not before getting a new architect and a new set of eyes, not a GM dutifully defending and executing an owner's agenda. That is the gift Matt Ishbia needs to give his basketball team, and that is the gift he needs to give all the tormented fans in Phoenix, Arizona. All right, today's Bickley Blast brought to you by my great friends at Chapman BMW, who make luxury attainable. Find them online at chapmanbmw.com.
30 games. We have 32 games, I believe. We have more work to do, but it allows us an opportunity to focus with this team on what it is that we want to do, which is compete at a high level, evidently have success in the playoffs, and compete for a championship. We understand that there's a lot of work to do, but it'll be fun. It'll be a challenge. And we're up to it.
That is James Jones, the general manager, president of basketball operations for the Suns, had a pregame press conference on Friday before the Jazz game. And yeah, it was an okay night on Friday night, Saturday night. You know, things came crashing back down to earth. But it's almost impossible just to focus on the basketball right now because of everything else that was out in the ether about this team during the trade deadline. And that was the reason for the press conference. Lots of questions to be cleared up. I don't know how many of them got cleared up because I think there was a lot more information in the Ramona Shelburne, Brian Windhorst piece in ESPN about these efforts by the Suns to get off of Bradley Beal, to trade him, which had gone on for weeks and weeks and weeks.
Yeah.
And the way you described it, I think, it makes a lot of sense to a lot of people. You know, banging your head against the wall.
Hoping the wall's going to crumble.
Yeah.
And it never would, and it never could.
No.
And so when you read that piece and you read the detail, you get a clear picture of an organization that made many, many missteps in all of this. And I know handling big egos and big superstars, I understand that there's complexities to it, but there have been a lot of mistakes here. And you can look at this team and you can look at the people, and keep in mind, I'm coming from the standpoint, as always, that we're very grateful to have an owner who's willing to spend billions of dollars on a franchise and spend hundreds of millions on luxury tax. I'm not downplaying that. I'm very grateful for that. But if you look at what roster construction has gone down in the last 2 years, there was the team that Matt Ishbia said was the best roster in the NBA, and it was terrible. And they ripped it up near the trade deadline, made no difference, swept out of the playoffs, came in this year, changed a lot of stuff, no difference. Trade deadline, we saw what happened. And what they were trying to accomplish and what they couldn't, and all the detail. Because on the back end, after the trade deadline ends, what happens is people like Brian Windhorst and Ramona Shelburne and others, they get debriefed by all their contacts and all their teams, and they're able to put together full stories of what goes on. Not just denials that, oh, that's inaccurate, oh, we never did that, or that's just rumor and speculation. I firmly believe now that this franchise is in the place where, given all that's transpired and given the way this team looks, even with Kevin Durant at his best, they have to trade him in the offseason. That, to me, there's no other way to rebuild a championship team here. But at the same time, this group, this alignment of GM, owner, everybody who's involved in the roster construction business with the Phoenix Suns, it isn't working. They're not doing a good job. The results speak for themselves. I am not being overly critical here. The results speak for themselves. You need to bring in a Bob Myers type. You need to bring in someone new with a vision and let him cook.
Yeah. James Jones was asked about that. It was a pretty wide-ranging press conference on Friday. The big three, which, again, I'm not a huge fan of even using that terminology anymore. But you ask anybody, and you just said it, this is not working out. And he was asked that question. Why has this pairing of these three great offensive players not worked out to the degree that you thought it would?
I think the injuries are a part of it. I also just think that we haven't performed well enough. We've had opportunities and we've built some momentum, but there's just been I would say times and lapses in our consistency. It's tough to evaluate when you have so much time lost amongst the three of them combined, but we do see glimpses of success. And for right now, it's at the last 32 games of the year. It gives us an opportunity to really focus on maximizing what we do with those guys and around those guys. And I'm confident that the end of the season, the goal that we're chasing, will help us crystallize and focus a little bit more on the details that I think will change. I don't want to say change our trajectory, but definitely put us in a better position.
And that kind of echoes what the Chris B. Haynes report was last week, when everything that was rumored didn't come to fruition for the Suns. He reported, hey, the hope is internal improvement.
Mm-hmm.
Now you're counting on internal improvement with two of your big three, quote unquote, who know that they were shopped at the deadline.
Yeah, who are not happy.
Yeah.
And so is there going to be a moment of crystallization where everything kind of gets on a different plane? I mean, come on. Here's the thing. We've spent a lot of time talking about this. James Jones obviously knows how to win championships. He's got a couple of rings. He won them as a player. Mm-hmm. We also know via popular reporting and assumption, he wanted no part of trading Mikal Bridges and Cam Johnsons for Kevin Durant. It took Matt Ishbia coming in saying, no, we're doing this. And he did it. So is this even a team that James Jones believes in? I know he says he does, but is this the team he would have built?
That's exactly what I was thinking, is if he had autonomous power over the last 3 years, what would this roster look like?
Yeah, it's a very fair question.
Because the Durant thing, you're exactly right, because we talked about that Durant thing for a year before it happened. And so we knew that they didn't pull the trigger when they possibly could have until Ishbia came in.
And people and the national dudes, they're talking about this openly. People on the ESPN morning radio show, James Jones, he clearly knows how to win a championship, but the owner's running the show. Well, that's, again, I don't know to what level that's accurate, but I think it's more accurate than not.
We thought it was
I think the results speak for themselves.
We thought
this
it was
a very poorly constructed roster. Go ahead, Jared.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to. We thought it was weird right away that James Jones stayed around to begin with.
Exactly.
When they brought in Bartlestein.
Exactly.
When they brought in the capologist guy, I forgot his name, and when Ishbia sort of took a little more power.
And they've got very good people doing all that stuff, but they need a new set of basketball eyes with a vision, and they need that vision to be executed from the GM's office, because that's how you win championships.
Yeah, and I think this team was hoping, there has to be a realization of roster construction failure. And they actually got smaller. They needed to get bigger at the trade deadline. They got smaller because they weren't going to use Yusuf Nurkic. I get it. But I think they were hoping that Durant, Booker, and Beal could be so brilliant it would cover up a lot of the roster flaws.
Yes.
And it hasn't.
No. And we all hoped. We all wanted this to work out. We all wanted to believe that the new point guard would make the difference, that the new head coach would make the difference. And now we're getting to the point where a lot of people are beginning to grumble about Mike Budenholzer in the media, whispers, all of that stuff. This thing can't digress to, it's the coach's problem. That's the issue here. It's not the only issue. Might be a issue. It's not the issue.
I would agree with that. Big game. A game coming up tomorrow night. And we still don't have any indication of the injury updates, and we'll get those later today on Kevin Durant and Bradley Beal. I'm curious to see what the vibe is like when they're back on the floor.
Yeah, me too. Because
the vibe, honestly, if there was a plus, the on-court vibe of the past weekend, the on-court vibe was pretty good. Even in a 17-point loss to the Nuggets, it was a pretty good vibe.
I completely agree with that. Even in that hopeless second half against Denver where they just overwhelmed you with talent, there was just different level of compete, if you ask me. And that's just my opinion and my vision of it all. But if you're serious about winning championships, they need to look this in the face. and see it for what it is.
Yep.
Thanks for watching Bickley and Marotta. Click to see the latest Bickley Blast and hit the button in the middle to subscribe to Arizona Sports.